The town was silent, yet it was not peace that held it, but death. Smoke rose from burning pyres, and the stench of decay clung to every corner. I, a gravedigger named Tomas, walked streets once full of laughter. Now silence. Shadows of neighbors, friends, and strangers lingered, their lives claimed by the plague. And it was my job to bury them. I carried shovels, torches, and a heart growing heavy with each passing day. The sun rose as a dull glow over the blackened rooftops. I heard the first moans of the dying week, rasping breaths that echoed through empty alleys. Children cried for parents who would never answer. The plague did not discriminate, and already I feared my own reflection, pale and hollow-eyed. Today, I would dig 15 graves, perhaps 20. Each would swallow a life, a story, a soul. The soil was damp, unwilling, but my hands worked mechanically. My back ached, my fingers cracked, but still I dug. The first body was that of a merchant, a man once full of life, now a husk. His eyes were half open, staring at nothing, yet I felt them watching me. I whispered a prayer, though faith had long since left me. The smell clung to my clothes, my hair, my skin. From the windows above, faces peeked. They were ghostly two survivors, hiding behind shutters, afraid to touch the world outside. Their eyes told stories of loss, their hands pressed against glass like they could hold back death itself. I wondered if they judged me, the one who handled the dead. But I did not judge them. Fear had made us all prisoners. A boy no older than 8 slipped through the alley, dragging a basket with what looked like scraps. His sister followed, coughing violently. They stopped when they saw me. His eyes were wild, yet curious. I did not know what to say. Words felt useless. In the silence, we exchanged nothing, and I returned to my work. Death did not pause for innocence. By noon, the town had already set fire to a few bodies in the square. Flames licked the sky, black smoke twisting like wraiths into the clouds. I shivered as the wind carried the smell of burnt flesh. It was a reminder. Even in death, there was no dignity. Only survival for those left, and the unending work of men like me. I met an old man while digging the graves, Hector, a fellow gravedigger. His cough was deep, wet, and I knew the end was near. We shared a brief look, a nod, and then returned to our labor. By evening, Hector was gone. No one would carry his body, so I dug another grave, deeper this time, feeling the weight of one more lost soul pressing upon me. I whispered his name as I covered him with earth. Darkness brought a cold that no fire could chase. The town's lights flickered, barely illuminating the narrow streets. I wrapped myself in a cloak that smelled of damp earth and decay. Shadows moved differently now. The dead felt closer. Every creak of a floorboard, every whisper of wind seemed alive with voices from the graves. Sleep would not come. I found a woman by the well, face pale, eyes wide with horror. She had lost her children, her husband, all to the plague. She begged me to tell her she would survive. I could not lie. I could not comfort her. I only nodded, handed her a piece of bread, and left her to wait. The plague would decide, not my words. Rain fell as if the heavens mourned. The streets turned to mud, the graves to soup. Each step was a struggle. Bodies sank deeper into the wet earth, and I labored harder to keep up. Water pooled in the pits, turning everything into a grisly mess. I wondered if anyone remembered the face of the man I buried first, or if he was already forgotten. The church stood silent, doors locked. Its bells had not rung in weeks. Inside, the pews were empty, save for dust and memories. I knelt at the altar, not in prayer, but for a brief moment of solace. I thought of my own family, of faces I would never see again. I cried quietly, but the dead called, and I had to return to them. By midweek, The town could no longer bury the dead individually. I dug mass graves, a pit deep enough to hold dozens at once. It was a monstrous task, yet necessary. Each shovelful of dirt felt heavier than the last. I named no one. I prayed to no one. I just dug until the earth swallowed them, leaving only whispers behind. The fear had settled deep in my bones. I woke screaming in the night, haunted by faces of the dead. They were not angry, only sad. Their sorrow pressed against my chest. I wondered if the living feared as much as the dead. Could we endure this long, or would the plague claim even those hiding behind locked doors? A stranger appeared, a man from a neighboring village, offering to help with the bodies. Together we worked, sharing silent nods, glances that acknowledged the horror. For a moment, hope flickered. Yet by nightfall, he too was gone, carried off by the unseen hand of the plague. I felt again the crushing weight of being alone, yet necessary. I paused by a grave, lit by moonlight. The face in the dirt reminded me of my own father. I imagined him alive, calling for me, and I touched the cold soil. Tears ran down my cheeks. I realized that though death claimed the town, my labor, my endurance, was its own quiet rebellion. To remember, to bury, to endure, that was my purpose. The final body of the day was a child, wrapped in rags. I carried him gently, as though he could still breathe. I dug a grave beneath an old oak, whispered a prayer, and laid him down. Closing the earth, I stepped back and saw the sun rise faintly through blackened clouds. Another day awaited, but I had survived, and the dead had been given dignity, if only in silence. The plague continued, relentless and merciless. Yet in my solitude, I found purpose. I was a witness, a keeper of stories no one would tell. I buried kings and beggars, saints and sinners, all under the same sky. And though the town was full of ghosts, each night I returned to my work, knowing that history itself would remember, in whispers, the hands that touched the earth, and the heart that endured.